Welcome to the Bao Podcast. I'm your host, Benjamin IJzermans, and my guest of today, and also our very first guest ever, is Idriss Goossens.
What an honor.
Idriss is the founder of Proptech Lab. Proptech Lab is a Belgian community for real estate innovators, and since Proptech Lab's founding in 2017, already 160 enterprises linked to construction joined Proptech Lab. Of these 160 members, 96 are startups and 64 are well-established construction companies.
Correct.
I have known Idriss for quite a few years now because of his work as the founder of Proptech Lab Belgium. And quite some people of upcoming episodes we will have in the near future, we will have met through Proptech Lab as well. It's a great initiative in the Belgian Proptech ecosystem, and I can only advise everyone who's active in our industry to check it out. So, with all that being said, Idriss, welcome to our brand new show, and thank you to come over here.
Thank you. It's really great to be here. Honored to be the first guest, and of course, completely happy to support anything that you guys do, because it's also, I think, something that you should keep on. I mean, that everyone must have an eye on. So, of course, I'm there and happy to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, I think a good place to start is to go to the beginning of Proptech Lab, because I've known you and the organization for a couple of years, but maybe some of the listeners haven't heard about Proptech Lab before. So could you explain to us how it all started in 2017, what the idea was behind it, and maybe we can start from there.
That's good, but maybe let's do a 10-year jump, actually, because I started my career around 10 years ago in what we call today the PropTech space.
Okay.
But back in the day, the word PropTech didn't really exist. So I worked in 3 different PropTech companies with a relatively important role. And 4 years ago, I really saw that we were in a unique momentum of innovation, of digitization in the construction and real estate value chain.
Okay.
We were really at the beginning of the PropTech movement. So an industry that remains reluctant to change during the past, 50 years, was starting to innovate. And so I wanted to have a modest contribution in this, I would say, movement of innovation. And so I decided to create a community with the mission to foster innovations in real estate or to ease the digital transformation of the sector. And so this is how Proptech Lab started. So originally it was just events that we were organizing once every 2 months with the ambition to educate or to inspire or to really increase the innovation maturity of the construction and real estate players by matchmaking startups together with investors. But we had no business model at the beginning, just like bringing people together. And we actually originally started by doing consultancy missions for a number of players.
Okay.
You want to implement a new tool, you want to implement a CRM or an ERP or anything like this, so we can help you. And we decided to stop that because it's not really scalable. It's just one person who can do an hour or a day, and if you want to grow, you need to hire more consultants. So not really scalable. And then we decided to implement the membership 3 years ago. And today we are at, as you mentioned, more than 160 company members, and we currently have a growth of 10% per month, which was really accelerated by COVID-19. So this is the story of Proptech Lab.
All right. So you mentioned in the beginning, and maybe I wanna click on that for a second, that you worked in 4 businesses before you started Proptech Lab.
Yeah.
And in those businesses, is that really where you saw like the big hurdles in the non-digitization of the industry, or where did the drive come from to start with Proptech Lab?
Yeah, absolutely. So I first worked at Housing Anywhere, which is a marketplace in the student housing space. But there, I was just a launcher, so I launched new markets, and so I would say that my passion for innovations in construction and real estate didn't really start there, because it was my first experience. I didn't really understood this sector so much. But after, I joined B Park, which is in the mutualization of parking spots space, and there I really understood that there was a big trend in construction, in real estate, which was to replace the ownership by the right of usage. And so I really understood this new business model. And I really understood that we had end users who had new needs, and that the real estate assets were not aligned to the new needs of end users. And so I really started to think of that, and it really excited me. I launched Marseille, and the PACA region, so it's southeast of France, for B Park. So I had 50,000 euro and 9 months to generate profitability, and I did it in 6 months. And then after I came back to Brussels to be a B2B sales, senior biz dev, as they were saying. Mm-hmm. And so there my interest for the construction and the real estate industry really started. And after that, to really kind of emphasize it, I joined Proplan, which became Let's Build, which were digitizing the construction process. It's a collaborative platform to optimize the construction follow-ups on construction sites. And there I really understood that the huge majority of construction players were working with pen and papers.
2017 still?
Yeah.
Really?
Absolutely. And taking pictures on construction sites with a kind of their phone, if they were high level, or even like with a camera. And so, and I had the role of creating the customer success management department. So it means that I was in charge of creating the trainings for customers, understanding their pain points, and make sure that the software are aligned on their needs and that they use it the best way possible. So I was daily confronted to their, I would say, Silex mentality, so their Stone Age mentality, in a way. I don't want to sound arrogant at all.
No.
But trying to...
Pen and paper in these times, you can say, yeah.
So kind of, how can we adopt innovation? How can we make sure that they use the tool? Because just anecdotes, but I remember once I told them, I was on the phone explaining how to use the tool, and I said, open a new window on their browser, and I heard the person standing up and opening physically a window.
No.
Yeah, so just for you to know, right? So this is how it started.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. A lot of places where we could go from there. I heard you mention the ownership to right of usage. So while you were working there, that's really the insight that's like the most important pivot, you could say, that you believe the market is going to go through in the next couple of years. And did you see the beginning of it in 2017, or was it already going? And can you explain a bit more about that idea? Because I think that's maybe something that our listeners could be interested in.
That's a huge question. So I don't think it's the only trend that we can see. The only innovation trend that we can see in construction and real estate. We see many others, but if we want to deep dive into that one specifically, I think it started maybe 20 years ago, where we gradually saw the creation of the pay-per-use model. So we first had we could streamline movies, and then streamline music, and then we had the car sharing movement, and then the mutualization of parkings, and then even like the co-living, the co-working, where you always have a desk, but it's never the same one for you. So you really have the right of usage. Yeah. You will always find a parking spot or a work desk, but it will never be the same because it's not yours anymore. And we think that this trend is really also appearing in residential. And so it's a big question, because maybe we land in a more rental market, where you don't need to own square meters anymore. You can just use them. And so for me, this has three main consequences. The first one is that maybe the value of the square meters will more and more depend on who is the operator. Okay. And I will explain in a second. But the second trend is that there is a creation of new business model, which is called rent to buy, which is in the middle of being a tenant and the middle of being a owner. And the third trend is that maybe there will be a rising gap, a bigger difference between the experience that you can have as tenant and the experience that you can have as owner of the square meters where you live. But let me clarify, because I don't want to lose you or the audience. You ask big questions, I have big answers, but I'll try to explain it the most straight to the point possible. So the first trend we see was really the fact that the value of the square meters will maybe be more and more depending on who is the operator. And so to explain that, I would like to explain what happened in the hospitality world. And it's really some thoughts that were made by Dror Poleg, which is a very inspiring author.
Okay.
And he explains that 100 years ago, in the hospitality world, it was really a non-competitive market, really flat market.
A bed is a bed.
Yeah,
I need to sleep.
And the competition between hotel was due to the location, because you were sleeping in the room that was in front of the station, because you were forced to take the train to stop by the station, and then the building that was in front of you was the hotel where you would sleep. So a really non-competitive market. But then appeared the telegram, then the telephone, and then the car, and so you could stop not only at the station, and you could also book in advance your room, and so it became a more dynamical and competitive market. And it's only the biggest hotel chains that were able to capture the demand, because they were relying on their volumes. They had that big booking capabilities, and so they were capturing the demand, right? And then appeared a new disruptor, which was the Airbnbs, Booking.com, etc., etc. And so as a consequence, and this is the reason why I explain all that, all the hotel chains created an asset-light strategy, because they realized that being an operator of square meters is completely different of being an investor and an owner. Because when you're an owner, what you're looking after is the value of the asset, maybe how to have a longer life cycle, how to decrease the cost, etc., etc. But when you're an operator, what you look after is the customer satisfaction, the retention. You must have the networking capabilities or the marketing capabilities, create a strong B2C market, etc., etc. And so all the hotel chains realized that it was two completely different core businesses. And so the same now is happening in the office markets, and we think that the same will happen in the residential market. And so
if I understand, so just quickly to recapitulate, so that I also understand it
of course
correctly. So that means that in the past they were focused on maintaining their buildings, maintaining their rooms, having good beds, but they started to realize indeed that when the asset light movement came up, that it's very difficult to focus on maintaining the assets itself and delivering maybe the digital great customer experience that the Airbnbs can do.
Yeah, and it's two different skill sets.
It's very difficult to build an organization that one is great at building and maintaining buildings, and also have software, digital component to have it both in the same. Yeah,
exactly. And so the same is now happening in the office market, where you see that you have all the owners, the Befimos, etc. of this world, all the REITs, and then you have the operators, the WeWork, the Workiro, the Silver Square, etc., who have the operational skill set, and it's completely different. And we think that the same will now happen in residential. If you ask me about this specific innovation trend, and so we need to have strong operators of square meters, which we don't have for the moment, I think, in residential.
And how would that work in residential? Because then I understand that Airbnb, we know, we all know by now. We've probably all experienced it once or twice, maybe even way more. But in office space, I just saw a documentary about WeWork as well, so I kind of understand the model by now, even though it was very
What do they do?
What the hell did they do? Insane. Good documentary. It was on Hulu. If you want to Google it and see it. Anyway, so we know how it works in those two segments. But if you would do it in residential, how does that work? Because you would buy a residential building. You don't buy it. You rent the building and then you put a layer of software over it.
That's what is, for me, interesting. You have a lot of different business models, okay? So if we, for instance, in the co-living space, you have the eco-hubs of this world, who have a similar business models as the B parks. B-Park was mutualizing the parking spots. EcoHub is mutualizing the square meters in the residential units. So what they do, you have a private investor, you and me, for instance, purchasing an apartment or a building or a home, whatever, and then EcoHub is operating it, and so they take commission on the revenue that they generate. If and the beauty of it is that they're able to generate more revenue than we would generate indirect, because they have all the skills to acquire, to offer different services, to generate more revenues. So this is the first business model. It's completely asset light. They don't need to acquire anything. So it can be done at scale. They don't need funds.
So someone buys a building and they rent the building of the owner?
Yeah, exactly.
They operate the building?
Yeah.
And the profit margin that they make on operating in the building is higher than if they would have bought the building?
Yeah. And then you have the other sides, which are the for instance, co-abs, where they actually purchase the buildings. They purchase the buildings and then they operate it. It's a different model. I like more the eco-hub because it's more scalable. You don't need to purchase. You don't need to have a lot of financial means because you don't need to put money on the table for them. You know. But you have different business models, and this is what is exciting to me because you see in the past 4 years, 5 years, a lot of new business models appearing, and so I would say what is inspiring to me is the fact that the domain of expertise of large construction and real estate firms does not protect them anymore from competition. You have lots of new players that almost didn't know anything about real estate, but they understand that there are new needs of end users. And the more traditional players are not able to answer these needs, and so they say we will do it better, and they try, and sometimes they succeed, and this is what is inspiring to me.
And so you think that what's happening, or what has happened in the last couple of decades in the telecom and in everything digital, movies, or with Netflix, and the innovation that's happening in all other sectors, you're starting to see that it's happening now in the residential market as well?
I mean, in all the construction and real estate value chain, so in all the core businesses that are composing this value chain, architect, engineer, general contractor, developer, brokers, property managers, asset managers, facility managers, owners, I mean, everyone, and also across all the real estate asset classes, not only residential, but as well office, even logistics, even healthcare, retail, infrastructure, hospitality, all of these real estate asset class, all the built world, if you want. And this is what is exciting. And you know, this big, this famous survey of McKinsey saying that there is only hunting and agriculture, which is less digitized than construction. You can imagine that. And so we think that now, even with COVID-19, this wave of change, or the wave is not a correct image. So this movement, or this awareness that innovation is not a nice to have anymore, but really a must have, was accelerated. A lot of players understood that it was a survival criteria for them. They must be agile. They must adapt new tools, create new products, create new services, in order not to be disconnected from the market in a few years.
What would you say to one of the, like a classic developer, a business, it exists for 50, 60, 70 years, family owned, third, second generation, and they hear you talk about these subjects, right? And they're starting to realize, and they've seen it in their other assets as well, like things can change really quickly. Yeah. And they hear you talk about this only one potential innovation that's already happening now. Yeah. What would you say to them to help them guide along in the upcoming changes that will probably happen?
I think so. First, I always want to stay the most with the most humility possible. I really want to avoid to have any time arrogancy or anything like this. So first, I would say very humble. Here is what I could say, and then I think I would first ask them a couple of questions to understand their innovation maturity. So I would ask them, do you have any FTEs working full time on innovation? Most likely no. Do you have a budget allocated to innovation? Most likely no. Okay. Do you have a clear innovation focus? Do you know where you want to innovate? No. Okay. Do you have a clear innovation strategy? Probably no. And finally, is innovation into into the agenda of the executive committee? Okay. Always yes or no? And these 5 questions are the metrics that we use to assess the innovation maturity of construction or real estate firms. So we can say, are you beginner, aware, realizing, or pioneer in innovation? And based on that, we can kind of guide them, right? And I think the first main step is to define the innovation focus. It can be used, you can define it whether it's internal innovation, what is visible for, what is not visible for the customers is basically to optimize the tools, optimize the processes, and get a greater excellence operationally. Right? Or it can be external innovation, which is new product, new services, which is visible to the customer. Okay. It can be strategic innovation or financial innovations. So these are the 4 matrices you could use to create your innovation focus. And when this is done, I would advise them to kind of distribute their innovation focus according to a map saying new technologies that exist and that we are using, technologies that exist and we are not using, and then new technologies that will be made available in a few years. Markets that exist and that we are serving, new market that exist and that we are not serving, and then the new markets that will exist in a few years. Okay. And if they can distribute their innovation focus in that map, and then they will start to understand more why they should innovate. But if after a few minutes they don't understand anything of what I'm saying, I would just say, look, you want to innovate because you don't want to be the T-Rex. The T-Rex was the top of the food chain and was not able to adapt in a fast-changing environment, and so it disappeared. And you're now, dear developer, potentially in the position of the T-Rex, so start to innovate.
But if it's like, I think it's a great like first framework for sure. But if I look around, I see a lot of smaller developer companies, anywhere between 5 to 15 people. Yeah. I also have some experience with the bigger ones, and then I see that even the bigger ones, and I'm talking about $500 million a year, they only have 2 or 3 people. I think even more, like the one that I know quite well from close by. They have 2 FTEs working on innovation.
That's correct. Yeah.
So then I'm just, if I put myself into their shoes, like I think it can be easy for them to become desperate when they hear all this change and they're not used to it. And indeed, it's not a very digital focused sector. So that's probably they also come from quite far to that they need to play catch up. Yeah. So yeah, if you think about it from that position, what is like the first small step outside, of course, of joining Proptech Lab?
You said it, I didn't.
But what are like the first really small steps, or what do you think is like the first things that they should watch out for that's coming quite quickly that they could focus on to make the organization a bit more prepared for the wave that's probably coming in the next couple of years and decades in their sector?
I would say it depends also on the asset class. You know, I don't want to give a politician answer and not answering anything, but the innovation trends that we see in residential are not the same in office or logistics or retail and also, but we speak mainly for developers now, right?
Yes.
I think maybe the easier to start is to try to optimize the internal operations. So it's really the digitization of the operations. Yeah. Install new tools, optimize the processes, get a more startup kind of processes. Right? Startups are. I was really amazed. The processes of B Park were so perfectly documented, so efficient, so scalable. The same for Proptech, to name just these 2. And I think processes sometimes at the developer are such not efficient. wasting time, wasting human resources. When the manpower could be focused on value add tasks, they are doing just administrative burden, you know. So I think the first focus could be maybe measure what you do with your time, and you will see that you could optimize it tremendously. And then install new tools, try to have automation, try to have streamlined processes, try to document stuff. Maybe do an internship in a startup. Really, I mean. So I think that's maybe the first step, which is easy to understand. Because when we speak about creating new products, creating new services, this is a bit more.
It's the next level.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah.
So first, start to look like more inside the organization, see what they can do to update the internal processes before they would start and focus on these new business models and these new services. That
I think it's what I would do. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Maybe to shift gears for a second. Now we looked at it from the changes that are coming, but if we change to the challenges that you see in the market itself. If you look at, for example, the Belgian construction market, what do you see outside of like maybe what we just talked about, or opportunities, right? What's going to change? Where will be the big where? How are the big players going to be formed in the next couple of years? But what do you see as like really big challenges in the construction market as well?
Okay. So again, maybe high level answer, and I'll try to be more concrete in second phase. On a high level perspective, we see three main challenges.
Okay.
The first one is that there are global macroeconomical trends, long-term trends that are reducing the margins of construction.
Okay.
And reducing the returns on investment of real estate. So you could think of, for instance, energy and climate change, energy crisis, climate change, or the aging of population and need for adapted infrastructures, or the fact that real estate projects are more and more complex, etc., etc. So you have these trends that are, it's a fact, really reducing the margins of construction.
Okay.
But on top of that, second large challenge, we see new technologies penetrating construction and real estate. And so it means that the nature of work has changed for construction and real estate professionals. They need to adapt to these new technologies, and they need to have new skills in-house, in the teams, to be able to use these technologies. So this is more of a kind of educational or training or adoption of technology related topic, right? And the third challenge maybe is the fast changing environment. So we see more and more players. We see the tech giants more and more investing or investigating construction and real estate, with many examples that you know better than I. And we also see that in 2020 there were 37 Proptech unicorns, and the majority of them didn't exist 10 years ago. So they took
37 already. Yeah. And how many in Europe? Do you know?
0 for the moment.
0.
But maybe Bao Living is the next one. No, but yeah, this is a big question. And so from high level perspective, these would be my answers.
Okay. Just to focus a little bit more on the unicorns, weren't there any German companies who raised like more than a billion already in funding?
In the Proptech space?
Yeah.
Not that we have spotted.
No. How was the German one called?
Wonderwall?
Yeah.
No, UK.
Okay.
UK based Wonderwall.
Okay.
Yeah. Winner of the awards.
Aha. Okay. There you go. All right. Interesting. So the margins that are gonna go lower and lower, can you focus a bit more on that? Well, like why? How would that happen? Why would that happen?
Again, I would say, from what I know, the construction sector has, of course, pretty low margins, right? It's 4%, 3%. Sometimes it's even on project-based negative margins, and it's due to different stuff. One of the reasons is the scarcity of the resources, so it's hard to find the right resource materials, but as well FTEs. And I think also it's also due to the nature of the business in a way, because developers send the call for tenders, and then the general contractors have maybe only 2 weeks to send their offerings.
Yeah.
So they try to do assessment of the price, etc. But it's kind of hard to do because they never know what problems will happen, etc. And I'm not a professional of the sector, right? I'm just a kind of trend watcher. So I think Thomas van den Berg would be an excellent guest to speak about this more precisely, for instance, from basics. But from what I can see is a lot of inefficiencies. And so it's the reason that these margins that are already low are decreasing. And another very interesting fact is the fact that the productivity curve decreased in the past 50 years in construction. So it means that today we're able to produce less with the same amount of people and same amount of time than 50 years ago. Can you imagine that? Although in agriculture, for instance, it grew up tremendously, like plus 100%, but in construction it decreased.
Same amount of materials, same amount of people.
Yeah.
And we can build less with the same.
According to McKinsey again, right? And but
even with all our digital tools and our BIMs and
how crazy is that? Yeah.
And why?
I don't know. Maybe one of the reasons is that we have lots of more regulations. We have the QHSE regulations, prevention, environment, etc. You know, for instance, that the Empire State Building was built in 1 year and 4 months. So it was a speed of 4 floors per week.
Yeah.
But it was slavery. So we can build stuff very quickly if we have slaves, in a way, you know. But this is a big challenge for sure. And I guess it's because there are too many inefficiencies. Too many... Proplan was saying 1 hour on site equals 1 hour doing a report in the office.
Really?
Yeah.
One-on-one variable.
Yeah, exactly. Of just reporting, administrative burden, etc. So people cannot focus on their value-add tasks.
So when you said a couple of minutes ago, focus on your internal processes.
Yeah.
It's also because that's probably where the lowest hanging fruit is to increase the margins of your entire construction process.
Yeah.
Okay. That's crazy, eh? Same amount of people, same amount of material.
Yeah.
Half as much.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah. And then when you think about the fact that in the next 30 years, we will need to build a billion new homes.
Yeah. It's 2,000 per day, something like this.
There's so many that there's so much that will need to be reinvented in order to be able to build this.
Yeah. But we see already some main players appearing in the prefab space, in the 3D printing, into the offsite construction, etc. And I was speaking with Blackhorn Ventures, Ray Levitt, who is also a keynote at Relevation, a summit that we organize.
Okay.
And he was saying that, you know, because of the Trump, they're based in US, and because of the Trump policy, a lot of Mexican workers were kind of like sent home. Yeah, sent home or sent elsewhere because their home was maybe US. And so the construction industry in the US was lacking a lot of workers. And so that's why they speed up the offsite construction process and the robotization because they didn't have manpower anymore.
And they subsidized it or just the demand?
No, just private investors invested and they saw that there were a big problem. And so offsite construction really picked up with Acontera and these players.
Could you give you just talked about these interesting players that are picking up, and do you have some interesting examples of really like the bigger prefab companies that are starting to organize themselves?
Yeah, in
Europe or in the States.
Yeah, in Europe you have Modulus, which is still early stage. They have around 50 FTEs. Based in UK, but they closed a significant round recently, and they're active in several markets. They target Nordics, and you have, of course, Bucklock, which is a joint venture Skanska and IKEA, and they, by the way, also come and speak at Relevation. Oh. So exciting.
So they're still. I thought they stopped.
No, they didn't. Okay. They didn't. No. So that's definitely a great player to watch out. And then you have, of course, the Acontera trying to manufacture the production of residential units. as we would produce cars.
Catera.
Catera, yeah. Catera. Sorry, I was mixing up with Acantera. So
No.
VC fund based in Antwerp.
And Catera, you already mentioned it a couple of times, but in the States, then all these technologies are picking up. They get funded. They have 37 unicorns, and in Europe we have 0.
Yeah.
Could you explain maybe something about, because you also organize with Revelation?
Yeah,
it's the biggest fundraising
summit. This is how we call it.
Fundraising summit. Yeah, but could you maybe say a couple of words about why that's the case? Why is the US again, as they did with the technology, and now it seems that they're doing this again with construction?
Yeah,
and in Europe we are.
What is happening here?
What's happening here? Yeah, indeed. What's going on? Why are we behind? Basically,
I wouldn't say we are behind.
Okay.
I would say we are different. But so first, the 37 Proptech unicorns are not all of them based in US. You have as well China, which is a big market. Singapore, one Proptech unicorn. India, one Proptech unicorn. But 70% of the unicorns are based in US. Why? We think it's mainly because of the size of the market. It's one big market. You don't have entry barriers like you have in Europe. It's 24 now. 25 different Proptech markets here. And so every market has a different juridical framework, industry standards, language, etc., culture, etc., etc. So it's a very fragmented Proptech market, and it's even more true for the real estate and construction vertical than it can be true for the financial vertical, for instance, because real estate, the nature of real estate is to be an hyper-local business. People do a business in networking, in cocktails, and everyone knows each other, right? And so it's very hard for a foreigner to open a new market. And I know because I did it in Marseille. And so I think there is this fragmentation element, which is very important to mention. But besides this, I would say that Europe has a tremendous potential because we have 3,123 Proptech startups, according to the last survey. So 1, 2, 3. And in the US, they have only 2,000. So the ecosystem here is more vibrant, and there is also 26 national Proptech networks.
Yes.
There is Proptech Lab in Belgium, but you have Holland Proptech and Contech in the Netherlands. You have French Proptech in France. Almost every European market is covered with a local hub. And so all of these networks, they contribute to the dynamism of the ecosystem, and potentially they contribute to create the conditions allowing the creation of the first European-based Proptech unicorn. One of the great driver that could allow us to have a European-based Proptech unicorn is maybe the new regulation that is coming with the European Commission, the EU Green Deal, which will kind of impose net zero, to have net zero homes and to have buildings that are not producing any CO2 emissions. And so this will be a tremendous opportunity for Proptech solutions to play a role in that quest for net zero. So, yeah. Long answer again.
No,
I'm getting lost.
Long answers are perfect. That's why we do a podcast.
Yeah.
We don't want short snippets. As detailed an explanation as possible. I have a couple of roads that we can take from here. Maybe quick side note, because it's interesting for me personally, actually.
Cool.
You were explaining indeed because of the very diverse culture and legislative environment in Europe, it's not easy to enter a new market.
Correct.
But you did it in Marseille.
Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
I was very motivated first. I was a young wolf, wanted to prove my value. First, I think is really the drive of the person. You have 3 reasons why opening a new market cannot work. Either it's not the right person, or it's not the right approach, or the market is not mature enough. And so I had luck because the 3 elements were okay for me. I mean, were positive. But I remember that it was very hard, very hardcore. I remember one night, the biggest night in networking in Marseille, La Nuit de l'Immobilier. It's a night where you have the 2,000 most important players, all the C-levels, of the sectors that were there. Everyone knows each other, and I was invited by Big Immobilier because they were investor in B Park, and so I could get my entrance card, which was very VIP. It was 500 euro the ticket for just 2 hours a night event. But on top of that, not everyone could be accepted. So it's not only that you want to put your 500 euros, you also need to be on the guest list. So it's, and so I landed there with not super clean shoes. Everyone was tied up really like in Cannes, like it was the cinema festival, and I was there like a hare in the soup. And it was very hard to just shake hands, because they were saying, "Who is this junior guy bothering me with his business card? I'm not interested in parking." And but going for it. At the end of the day, I was able to create relations, and I really did. And I really went, I think, across all the different angles. So I met developers, I met the municipalities, I met a couple of politicians, I met journalists, and I tried to really have the biggest network possible. The problem is that the seeds that you're planting in real estate often give fruits. So the sales cycle is really long in real estate, right? It's
Tell me about
usually 8 months or 6 months at the latest. So you really need to do a proper follow-up, and the value is in the follow-up. It's not only shaking hands, it's really what comes after. So try to build really great relations, because at some day they will give you fruits.
Okay. Good tips. And then the other route we could go through after the previous question or comment is you mentioned it in the new Green Deal. How important do you think is the legislative environment in Europe, and how can it influence the future growth of this PropTech ecosystem that you're trying to grow in Belgium and beyond?
I have no clue. I asked the same question to Gregory de Werp, the CEO and founder of EO Proptech, the largest European PropTech fund. And he gave me an answer. But me personally, I don't have really a clue. But what I can say, if I copy what he said, because I do agree, is that regulation sometimes can create opportunities and can create markets. And in this case of net zero race, I think it's true. But what I can also see, and it's something that I have on a regular basis already pointed out, is that when the metropole in France were created, so it's kind of agglomeration, it's like the municipaliteit or like a gemeente, or like, so it's a level above the city, if you want. So it's an agglomeration of different cities to create a bigger entity. So when that was created, they defined in the call for tenders that innovation was a selection criteria. So if, as a developer, you wanted to apply for a call for tender, you had to innovate in order to get the permit, and in order to be selected. Innovating meant just work with startups. So that's a very concrete example of how regulation can be a leverage to boost innovations. Public authorities just have to put innovation as the first selection criteria, and I guarantee you that tomorrow that all the developers will want to innovate.
Yeah, that's true.
And
that's true.
And the thing is that the problem is that innovations is not driven by the customers. Innovation is really driven by something else. Either regulation or a vision of the sector. But Henry Ford famously said, if you ask customers what they want faster horse, they don't want a car, right? And it's really the same in real estate. So that would be my long answer.
Do you see the Belgian or Flemish government open for this kind of advice, or are you guys in contact with them?
We try to be a bit in contact with them. For instance, we gave master classes. So we invested time to give free master classes to a lot of professionals, to a lot of public authorities. we gave it to a number of players, like the cabinet of Rudy Vervoort, who is the minister president of the Brussels-based government. We gave it as well to a lot of different peoples. We gave it to different governors as well, just to raise their awareness and to make sure that they understand that, because potentially after there is a business outcome for us. And this is more of a personal opinion, and since we're just between us in an intimate conversation, right? I would say that I don't have a super big trust in the politicians for the moment. I think that their main drive, unfortunately, is their re-election. And the way the COVID-19 crisis was managed really didn't give me more trust in their ability to drive things forward in the right direction. I think it's more the sector who can really do stuff. That matters.
Quick, can you keep the mic a little bit? Yes, can you? Yeah, sure. A little bit more. Okay, so you think the biggest change should come from the sector itself?
Yeah, I think.
And are there like a couple of small things, or how would you, if you would be king of construction sector of Belgium tomorrow, what are like the first 2-3 things you would advise the people or the businesses in the sector to do in order to increase this or to improve?
Of construction and not real estate. I cannot answer that. I mean, it would be way too arrogant. I have no idea. There are people that have spent 20 years in the sector, and I'm just like the outsider that come.
Okay, no problem. But you mentioned our politicians. Do you see other countries in Europe that are creating a better environment?
I don't want to do Belgian bashing, but I think France, for instance, with this Metropole success story or best practices, succeeded in generating more innovation maturity among the construction and real estate players in the sector. I think in the Netherlands as well, you have the Het Ministerie van het Milieu or something like this, who said that to get permits, you must innovate. Again, it's also a selection criteria. In the UK, you have for all the public call for tenders, you must be certified BEAM level 2 to be able to apply. So it's also a great way to boost innovation, saying that you must have a certain expertise in using new construction technologies. You must have a certificate in order to be able to apply. So it's also a great way to boost innovations. Yeah.
Okay. Something that we are confronted with at Bao is the really long permit in Flanders, the construction permits.
Yeah.
And in Brussels, apparently, it's even worse.
Yeah.
We have a project, renovation project, 20 potential units. And we have been in discussion with them for a year already. Well, no, 18 months. And now they handed in the permit again. And they said, okay, get back to us at the end of the year. And this was in February. So it's going to be 2 or 3 years before they have the permit.
But you see, this is, I mean, as a startup, you cannot have such an immobilism in a way.
It doesn't work, eh?
No. I mean, it's a completely different reality. As a startup, you must every year, every day, every week, have new stuff, new project. You must advance, and your time frame is very fast. And this kind of time frame, but BPI, the real estate developer, BPI, the Erasmus Garden, they were waiting more than 10 years their permit. And so you imagine that you have to think of the conception, of the design of the square meters, that will be that, and you will get your permit only in 10 years, and you will be able to deliver that in 15 years because you have 5 years of construction work. But in 15 years, how will change the way people consume real estate, the way people, all their needs, Facebook was created, 15 years ago?
Something like that, yeah.
And it changed
the iPhone was launched in 2017, so that's 14 years ago. But,
so it's crazy. How can you be visionary if you have 10 years that you waste for the permit? Yeah,
you can't.
No.
It's not possible. No, and I
You
can
pointed something very important. Yeah.
Yeah, we can speak from experience. It's a big hurdle if you want to foster innovation, and I think the biggest sector in Belgium, right?
Yeah.
This really slows things down.
And there is also another problem: is not the building permit, but the usage permit, because we see that more and more square meters should be mutualized to have a higher intensity of operations, meaning it can be used during the night, during the day, during the breakfast. It can have much different usage, right?
Yeah.
But normally you can have a permit only for one specific usage. The office is just office. It cannot be also residential. And this is again a barrier to innovation. So we see that regulation can be a boost or a big hurdle. But I think there is a huge work to be done there. But although it's important, I don't know where to start. And it's also maybe more the work of UPSI BVS, with the more lobby.
Is that a Brussels-based organization?
No, it's Belgian, yeah.
Oh, I've never heard from them.
UPSI BVS.
UPSI BVS.
UPSI,
okay.
yeah.
Interesting. All right. Maybe from the challenges, maybe talk a bit more about Proptech Lab itself. You've been active for 4 years now. What are the biggest lessons you've learned in those 4 years?
Tremendous lessons. Wow, that's a huge question, and we've learned so much. If I must share the personal lessons learned from entrepreneur to entrepreneur,
definitely.
I think maybe one of the most important stuff is to know your values and your drivers, because otherwise you can lose yourself in a way. So really understand what is life taking for you, what is life giving for you, life giving being where you have passion and where you get gratification. Life taking, it can be where you have skills, but it's really taking your energy. So try to avoid everything which is like life taking. So I would say really probably the biggest lessons learned is, and it's actually still not learned. It's actually still the big question: how to find the right equilibrium, private and professional life.
Right. Yeah.
Right balance.
Yeah.
But I think alternatively, I mean, more than that, I've learned that work hard pay off as long as you keep focusing on the value that you have, on the relevancy, on the value add you have. And so we built something without having any idea where we were going. We had a long-term vision, but we had just this passion, this kind of sense of purpose, and we always, the only thing that could keep us awake at night is really, are we relevant? Are we giving enough value to the customers and to the members? And so our intention was never to sell a membership and then ciao, we will speak at the renewal. And so really but it's hard to focus on operations, on acquiring new members, and on focusing on the value we provide. And so my last kind of confession would be my biggest lessons learned is probably try to focus more, because either you have a lot of features and you are an amazing generalist, but you have a very small efficiency, or you have not a lot of features, you focus on what you do, but you have a super big efficiency. And I think I lost a bit myself in the generalist stuff, doing too many stuff for Proptech Lab, doing many stuff, but as well I have European Proptech Association, I have Relevation now as well. So it's 3 different companies. And on top of that, I hope you're seated, I have a concept store that I have opened with my wife. And so, I mean, like it's 4 companies, plus 1 non-for-profit. I mean, it's too much.
And a son.
Yeah. So really focus more on what you do, because otherwise, if you do too much of anything, you don't do anything well.
That's true. What's the concept store about?
health, wellness, beauty in a local and do-it-yourself approach. It's actually an interesting case because it's also a new business model in a way, because it's what we call co-retail. So it's like co-working, but brands are paying a fee to be able to be in the store. So it's really like co-working, but in the retail space. But completely different from the topic of today. It's called dosha concept.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Well, is it open already?
Yeah. It was opened during pandemic and during my wife being pregnant. So,
okay.
It's not like one small challenge. I take as many challenges as you want. I'm a challenger, but
okay. Keep focus.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's a big point.
Okay. Where do you see Proptech Lab in 10 years?
So we have a vision, and it might change because we don't need to stick to it. We must be aligned on the demand, on the real needs. But probably the idea in 5 to 10 years is to first make sure that we build a machine that has a positive impact, and that generates significant outcomes financially, but also for the society. And my idea, concretely, is to have a holding of different group of companies that can cross-fertilizate each other and that are complementary. So the membership.
Okay.
Then why not a VC fund to invest in in different startups?
Okay.
Why not an accelerator or an incubator in partnership with specific developers? And also, what I would like to do, it's something that was really torturing me during my paternity leave, was the fact that it's been 4 years, almost 5 years, that we advocate that we must innovate in construction and real estate, and we don't really show it. We don't really prove it.
Okay.
And we don't have enough, I think, relevancy. It's easy to say you must innovate, but who are we? We are not a developer. We don't have square meters. And so what I would like to do is to create a developer. It's to create a demonstrator.
Okay.
So it's really a proof of what is the building of tomorrow, in partnership with all the tremendous entrepreneurs that are members of Proptech Lab. So building a consortium, everyone can join, and we build the building of tomorrow. And we show it to the sector, and we say, look, this is really the building of tomorrow, with Bao Living, with B Park, with all the 90 amazing startups that are member, because it's our value. We want to build a community, but we also want to make the sector go forwards. And maybe it's the best way to do it.
That sounds really cool. Yeah, that would be really impressive. Then you can have like an event space at the bottom, all the Proptech Lab events.
Yeah.
In that building.
And the rooftop. For me, the rooftop is a big problem in Belgium. It's really big problem. And we had the discussion with Athenor and many other developers, AG Real Estate and everyone. They all want to do rooftop, but it's very difficult to do it for regulation and cost. But if you go to Madrid, all the roofs of buildings are rooftop.
Yeah. Terraces.
And so terrace and amazing, and here all the rooftops are nothing, and it's so depressing. And it's like if the conception of the roof is just a wall, just a roof to be protected from the rain, because it rains a lot, of course. But what you have just above is also a floor that you can use. You can put trees. You can put just use it. And in Belgium we don't do it, and it's really
sad.
Really sad. Come on.
Have you been at Pact in Antwerp?
I'm not sure yet.
It's next to the site that Matexi did.
Okay.
In Belgium.
Yeah, close to the station.
Close to the station, yeah. And they did that. They built like an urban farm on top of the.
Yeah, come on. We need more
building. It's
more
really cool. There's animals living there. Chicken and fish and.
But I think uprising has a huge potential, and also urban farming and this kind of stuff, because of the densification, beton stop, and all of that. But going from one topic to another, this is like podcasts should do, I guess.
Yeah, it's fine, no problem. Okay, so many ideas for the coming 10 years. Do you have international ambitions with Proptech Lab? You're part of you're part of a cluster, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I have 3 different hats. I divide my time in 3 different, I would say, entities. The biggest part being Proptech Lab. Second biggest being Relevation. First is Proptech Lab, Belgian-based. It's really the national network of real estate innovators. Second is European Proptech Association, which is the pan-European umbrella coordinating the 26 national associations, including Proptech Lab.
Okay.
With the ambition to maybe to contribute to create the conditions allowing the creation of the first pan-European Proptech unicorn.
Okay.
So we organize awards, as you know, because you were semi-finalist last year, and big news also this year. But also a number of research, etc., etc. And then we have Relevation, which is the digital fundraising summit for PropTech. So it's a matchmaking event where PropTech startups raising capital can meet any kind of investors.
Okay.
And the leading investors of the world are attending. And also PropTech unicorns are attending. Procore Technologies, they joined this year, etc. So it's really tremendous event. And so there is this local, national level with Proptech Lab, European with the European Proptech Association, and then global, more of a global scope with Relevation. But if you ask me, for Proptech Lab, we have potentially international ambitions, either to do M&As with other national networks, or why not to open new markets that exist. Our advisory board encourages to do this, but I'm not really sure yet. To be fair,
and Proptech Lab, it's an organic business, right? It's you have no investors, or
no own funds. Yeah,
that's crazy. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We just paid with the hours that we don't sleep, you know.
Could be a very expensive price that you paid.
Absolutely. Maybe we speak about years of my life, man. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, maybe to finish off, a couple of Lilac questions. When this pandemic is over, what's like the first place you're gonna travel to with the newborn son, or when you have some time off or some holiday? What's a beautiful spot you can advise people to go to?
These are two different questions. The first answer is Gran Canaria, to see my step-parents and to present him our newborn, our new son, or son, I don't know, because he's both. But where I advise people to go to Italy. I think they suffered a lot from the crisis, and we need to support them a bit. And also, it's an amazing country. So yeah, anywhere there. Any specific locations you can advise? You've been to in the past? Yeah, I lived 1 year in Palermo, in Sicily, and it was the best year of my life. So go there and enjoy life. Life there is easy, and people are really amazing, really friendly, and but it's a bit underdeveloped. You have to know, it's a bit between Europe and Africa, but people are amazing. Okay, final question. If you would say one or two links or sites or cases that could be inspiring for the people who are listening, to really challenge their own ideas about construction or where construction is heading, do you have a couple of great inspiring cases or businesses that they could check online? I would advise to go on rethinkingrealestate.com or .org, which is the website of Dror Poleg, who is a really visionary, and purchase his book, Rethinking Real Estate. But on top of that, I would also share with all the founders, the entrepreneurs listening, to listen to the podcast of Gabriel Parisi, which is called A Burnout Manifesto, which is very inspiring, because he explains how he went in a burnout, and it starts like this. I'm going to speak about a founder who was graduated from a top university. He started to work in a company that he launched directly, worked a lot, etc., etc. And 1 year after launching the project, he finally released his product, and that was a tremendous success. And everyone invited him to speak everywhere, etc., etc. And I will also speak about another founder who also launched his company right after graduation. And he spent a lot of time working hard, and every day it was like a crisis that he would end up the project for good and feeling depressed. And when he finally launched his project a year after the start of the company, it was the day where he felt the most empty and alone of his life. And that's the same person. It's the difference between the internal story and the external story. The external story is what people see of you. Internal story is what you feel. And so he explains everything there. And for me, it was super inspiring and wise. So go listen to that before you burn out yourself.
I think that's a beautiful way to end. Maybe unless we do a round 2 in the future, is there anything else you would like to share to close off today?
I'm looking for the next projects of Bao Living, and if you haven't been into their demonstrator, their showroom here in Antwerp, the City of Diamonds, you should really check it out.
Okay, Idriss, thank you very much to be the first guest on this new experiment of ours. And I hope we can speak again in the future because it was very interesting. I wrote an entire sheet of paper full with things I need to check and things I need to remember. So once again, thank you very much. And hopefully we can speak again in the future.
My pleasure. And it was also an experimental for me, so I hope it was okay.
I think that will be I don't think that will be an issue. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening to the Bao Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe to our channel. If you're interested in Bao Living in our Smart Adaptable Module or SAM, go check out our website baoliving.com. If you want to stay up to date, you can best subscribe to our monthly newsletter on our website or follow us on all social media platforms where we're named @Bao Living.